Mike, what are our Hawks going to do, man? Landry Fields went on the morning shift. He answered all the questions. I asked you earlier, can we trust that he's going to get this fixed?
I mean, you got to trade some guys. And, I mean, like 2 ways we fix this thing. Like anything in sports. You can go back to the drawing board, and that'll take forever. Or you can buy your way out of it. And I just don't think like we had Tony Ressler on about a month and a half ago, and he said he's always been prepared to get up there and do the luxury tax, but he's never done it. You know, and look, Red Velvet, we didn't keep him, and maybe he would have done better here in Atlanta because he kind of disappeared in that series against the Lakers, but he was a big part of why, Sacktown got to where they were this year. But we missed that veteran scoring off the bench. We've talked about that. We need more pieces. Hell, Steve Conan told us we need guys who can dribble and shoot. And the ball go in the basket. As Lon Kruger, it's important, Carl, the ball goes in the basket. So how you fix it? You're going to spend your way out of it? You're going to trade your way out of it? I mean, at some point we got to throw prime to pump, right? Throw some money at this thing.
You're gonna have to. And I think the reason why it's going to be harder for Landry Fields is some of your resources you traded away for DeJounte Murray. Now, if you're telling me we're going to move Murray in another blockbuster kind of deal, is that really the answer? I don't know. What I do know is what we thought this would be wasn't. At times it showed that it had promise, but I'm talking about this connection between Trey and DeJounte and how they would work. I watched the Celtics again last night, Mike, and we watched them this entire series. It just, on any given night, it's Brown or Tatum. 32, 29, 38, 30, 42, 35. They both coexist.
Right. I mean, here, we remember the night, guys, remember we were doing the show, I think we were at Twin Peaks, and we were trying to come up with where you're going to get the extra points now that DeJounte Murray was suspended. Ironically, Trey went back to superstar playoff Trey, and you got the win up there in Game 5. But nobody else, you don't know what you're getting from John Collins night in that net. You don't know what you're getting from DeAndre Hunter. He was averaging basically 16.7 for the series, which is kind of what he does when you need 20 and 25. You need to elevate. When you're the fourth guy selected, Carl, but here we go.
Yep.
The excuse makers will say, well, in the NBA, you're really not totally ready to go until year 6. All right. Well, then I got to have 2 more years of watching DeAndre Hunter be inconsistent before we don't cut bait. I say trade him now while there's some value, and somebody says, okay, we can get, and then we can go get somebody what Boston has, like what Milwaukee's a bad example. They got beat, but the kind of stuff Milwaukee has, where it's Middleton, who's a free agent, by the way, this season.
Yeah, let's hear from Landry Fields talking about the Hawks culture. This offseason starts with having the right people.
It all starts right now with getting the right people in place and making sure that moving forward, this is a group that we can continue to build with for a long, long time. That's the goal. If we're doing that and people are staying, that's great. And we want it to where nobody should be leaving unless it's for another job or promotion to do something else.
Okay. And I don't know if we have those people right now. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not sure if all of those things are in place as we talk about our Hawks. It's Dukes and Bell Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. Mike, and, the thing about this is Trey is going to continue to get better. We got to get some help around him. But how do you move, if not one, not two, maybe 3 pieces?
Well, here's the thing. Could you turn around after Travis Schlenk got fired? You just pointed out because he didn't feel 3 first-round picks was worth it for DeJounte Murray. He said DeJounte Murray's a great piece, but not for that.
Right.
The ask was too much, in his opinion. So are you going to turn around and trade DeJounte Murray? Because he's got to remember, he got 1 more year here, then he's got the year, which is his option to stay. So, look, Trey and him seem like they're coexisting. I do think the good thing we have going for us is Quinn Snyder's got everybody seemingly on the same page. Most importantly, Trey. Trey really loves the coach. They're getting along. For the first time, he feels someone, I think, has his back through thick or thin. And I think it translates to what Trey's saying, more importantly, what he's doing. But I'm looking right now at this Spote Rack, which is the website which breaks down cap.
Okay.
John Collins gets $25.3 million next year, and he's not worth it. That's number one who's got to go because he's just not consistent enough. Carl, we've talked about it. It was great when Quinn Snyder says pull, and John Collins got on a bit of a heater and started making some of his threes. But when you go back and you look at the series and you look at John, especially when, let's be honest, when we could still had a chance to get into the playoffs and not the play-in game, he laid some big eggs. And if you look at the game log, 5, 8, 5, and then he pops for 22 in the win in Game 5. But that's what I'm talking about. You just don't know. And it's not worth, is that worth 25? Is 11.3 in the playoffs on average worth $25 million? Dukesism. I'll steal your own thunder.
It's not.
It's not.
It's not. And these are the hard decisions. We got to take our feelings out of this.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to make us truly better? And here's the thing. All these guys, including Landry Fields, will say, listen, I'm not looking at Boston or Milwaukee. Okay, and I got to mention this too, by the way, because I know they folded up like a cheap suit and didn't accomplish their goal being the number one seed in the East. Coach Bud had a personal family issue that was going on that we didn't find out about until after the series was over. I think it affected the series, Mike, and now some people have backed off and said, okay, that's a different deal. But with that said, you still have to think about the teams that you're going to be competing against, Mike.
Right.
Here are the Knicks. Knicks are playing tonight, right? And I don't know. By the way, Jimmy Butler is out tonight, ankle update, okay?
And it's got to be bad if he's not playing.
No doubt. He's a dog. So he's out. He injured that late in the game in game one, but they got game one. So I think the Heat think, listen, we'll rest him tonight, get another day of rest, and we'll get back to Miami, and hopefully we can take advantage of this series. But the point is, Knicks are going to get better. They're better than what we already expected. And the thing about the Knicks is, the group of guys that they got together, everybody said, it's not a championship caliber team, but it's mixed and meshed. And Mike, Jalen Brunson, and all of a sudden Barrett looks like he's developing. And you start to Obi Toppin.
Right. Brought in Josh Hart, his teammate from Villanova.
They got something working. My point is, what do you do against all that when you're trying to build our team and you say, we need to be better than these teams?
I will say this. I'll still take Quinn Snyder over Tibbs because Tibbs will run these guys down.
Oh, I'm not debating that.
And for those who don't know, Thibodeau is rather physical. By the way, I forgot the name of it. I saw it earlier today. It was out there on Twitter. Jeff Teague was on some NBA podcast, and he was talking.
It was me.
That's right. You know where I found it? Carl Dukes.
I tweeted it out.
Carl Dukes posted this, and go find it because I laughed my ass off watching that today. And it's basically Jeff Teague talking about a Minnesota Timberwolves practice before Jimmy he was in a contract year, and he basically takes over practice because give me the four worst scrubs, and he beats the starters, goes after Cat, and just beats him like a drum. It was hysterical. But you know me, I'm a big Jimmy Butler fan.
Yeah, I just think you got to think about all of that while you're trying to put your team together. You can't maneuver your team and go, well, what those other teams are doing doesn't matter. You're going to have to probably get past these squads we're talking about.
Right.
Again, Giannis, they're going to come back with vengeance next year. Like that was a complete letdown.
Cleveland's going to add some pieces.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, guys, but this goes back to that, I know, big word, Chris, the existential question. What are we? Are we good enough? Are we simply a bunch, or are we, other than Trey going off and doing superstar stuff in a couple of games against Boston, we are the island or the basketball team of misfit toys? It doesn't fit.
True.
The John Collins does. You don't know when he can't create his own shot. Maybe one night out of five, he gets on a heater, he can hit some jump shots, hits those threes. DeAndre Hunter, if you're not going to be able to give me consistent jump shots, can you play some defense? He doesn't play great defense like we thought coming out of UVA. And then go down the list. Bogey can't play 2 nights in a row. Capella can't put a ball in the basket from 3 feet or in. And we love Clint, but I think that's another thing. I think maybe you move on to Clint and you give a Kongu an expanded role and bring in another big.
Can we hear Landry Fields one last thing? We're going to get to last call coming up. It's Dukes and Bell talking about the Celtics series. He says it was a result of one game, Mike. He's not going to look at that series and then feel like, okay, we've got to make massive changes. I think we already knew this before the playoffs. Like, how did you feel in the midway through the season? And despite the changes, did your opinion change only because we lost to the Celtics? I think most people thought we were going to lose to the Celtics, Mike. Anyway, the only difference was we took them 6 games. Here's Landry Fields, the general manager of our Hawks.
You gotta take that as a win and understand that you're playing the long game and understanding like this is part of our new approach and part of our system, and we're starting to see, I guess you could say, some of those first fruits of it. It just gives us a lot of excitement going into next season. So I like the way our guys competed there at the end. They gave it their all in Game 6, and just didn't come out with the win.
So he says, listen, the game itself, losing Game 6, is not going to result in me freaking out. I get that. But I think we were freaking out midway through the season.
Yeah, but this goes back to what you and I were talking about. That article came out in The Athletic that mentioned, all of a sudden we found out there's another cook trying to make the stew. His name is Nick Ressler. Yeah. Nick Ressler's involved. Look, I got no problem with Kyle Korver getting involved. I think Kyle knows what he's doing. I'm still a little bit, like Landry Fields, every time I hear him speak, it's a lot of generalities and a lot of sort of buzzwords about positivity and all this stuff. I don't know. The guy that I'm really excited is being involved in this, is kind of old school, is the actual coach. Is the fact that Quinn Snyder is involved in maybe who stays and who goes in this offseason.
Do you think he says, let's stay the course? He can't, right?
There were some good things happening, but at the end of the day, we still were a 500 team.
Yeah.
We still had some really terrible losses under Quinn Snyder like we had under Nate because, guys, all those things we just talked about. Guys, we don't have consistent scoring. We need guys who can score the ball, man, along with Trey. Because how else are we going to ever do anything like we did in 21? In 21, you brought this up. Gallinari, right? Herder was a guy you trusted. Lou was there. You had legitimate scoring threats. Yeah. And we don't have that on this team.